Welcome, pudding people, to another episode of Everybody Loves Pudding. I am your host, Ken Seymour, with your other host, Richard Geiger.
Hello.
We are fantastically excited today. We get the chance to speak with somebody that's a unique part of pop culture history, specifically through film and stage. We have the lovely and talented Amy Stoch with us today.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Cool.
I have to say that I get excited anytime I get a chance to talk to somebody that's been a part of so many good things like you have in the past and continue to be now.
Mm-hmm.
But part of what kind of got me into movies were actually kind of a handful that you were involved in. We'll cover that here in a minute. But you know, I'm giddy. I'm like a schoolgirl right now. I can't help it. Richard,
Being happy.
Right.
You can be giddy away. Just giddy away. I don't care.
Mm.
It's very cute. Thank you.
Oh, so one of the first things that popped out to me is you are not just an actor. You have delved into the realms of academia and teach acting and have achieved a doctoral degree. Specifically, is it right that it's a theater history, theory and criticism that was in?
Yes. Yeah, all three actually. So yes, I have a doctorate in theater history, theory, and criticism, and I actually wrote for my dissertation on all three of those topics. So yes, and I'm very proud of that. So it's not just theater history. It's a lot of theory and criticism as well.
What kind of inspired you? This seems like it's something maybe a little different than what a lot of career actors might pursue. It seems to have more of a perspective to it. What got you along this particular road?
Well, actually, it was the business. It was in the late 90s, and I was still working, but things were changing in the business. The looks were changing, all that lovely stuff. I also had a 5-year-old child at that time who was just starting school, and I think, let me do the math. How old am I? Hold on. Where is it? Yeah, I was approaching my 40s and kind of saw the writing on the wall for me. Even though I was still working, I was not working the way I would hope to. And so for a future, I decided a friend actually recommended that I go out to Cal State Northridge and check into their Master of Arts program, which I had, never considered going back to school, although I used to love school. So I went out there and got involved with the program part-time because, like I said, I had a young child at that time. So he was starting school and mommy was starting school. It was quite the experience for both of us. And during the course of taking my MA, I was going through a divorce and realized I was going to be a single mother in Los Angeles with an MA degree. And I went, you know what, the MA isn't the terminal degree. If I want to teach in higher ed, which was my goal, I need to go on for the PhD. So I applied to several different programs, got accepted at U of I, and we all drove across country, and there I was in Champaign-Urbana for 10 years. So, yeah. I won't talk about those years. They were quite difficult. Anyway. But yeah, I have a doctorate now, so it's pretty cool.
What is it about teaching? I've been fortunate enough to know many professors, specifically theater professors, over the years, and they all seem to share one trait in common. It's just this kind of feeling of energy that they have when dealing with students and dealing with the craft. What is it about that really reaches you? What brings joy to you out of this type of teaching?
Just number one is, and I always tell my students this, I learn more from them than they could ever learn from me. I love teaching for that respect because they bring so much to the classroom and they teach me so much about, especially in this day and age, about acceptance and accepting who we all are together And the love that they have for the craft is something I had when I was their age. And I'll tell you, after 30 or 40 years in this business, it can go away. The love of the craft and the love of what you do can definitely go away. And they just bring it back every single day. And I'm inspired by that energy. So when I come to class feeling like crap and I don't want to teach or whatever, or despondent about something, and all it takes is just to start the class and to see their enthusiasm, and I'm right there with them, and that helps me quite a lot. So I love that cyclical feeling of you put out there and they receive and they send it back to you in spades, and I love that about teaching.
Now you had actually said, we don't really want to talk about the time in Illinois, but originally, like you're from the Midwest, right?
Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland rocks, dude.
So, I mean, we're kind of sandwiched right in between them. We're in Bloomington, Indiana, so we're Midwest folks as well. So what has that kind of growing up in the Midwest, learning, like going to school in the Midwest, how is that translated to being out west? Because obviously it's a different vibe in a sense. So how is that translated to your instruction and the things that you do now?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yes, I grew up in the Midwest, and we have different sets of values in the Midwest. We really do. And we're proud of those. We're proud of being the heartland and being, Ohio is shaped like a heart. And we always say it's the heart of the country. And Cleveland was a great town to grow up in. I had two very wonderful, very accepting, modern parents for back in the early 60s. My mom always worked. She wanted to be a nurse, but back then young nurses couldn't be married. And so she had to quit her program when she married my father. Yes, that was in the 40s and that sucks, but that's the way it was. But my mom was always smart. She was always progressive. She always wanted to work so that we had things to, camping vacations. And my dad was a teacher and a golfer. So my dad taught us all about acceptance. I mean, we're Polish, and my father would come home and tell us the worst Polish jokes ever that he had heard from his students, and he's cracking up and, oh, it's so funny. I'm like, Dad, we're Polish. I don't care. It's funny. So I learned that from my parents is that just, so that helped quite a bit. Then moving to California, you're right. Totally different vibe out here. I remember the first month I moved out here, I remember calling my mom and saying, Mom, I think I just moved to Mars because I don't understand anybody out here. And it was very difficult to assimilate to the West. But what I think I brought with me and what I think I bring to my teaching is a hard work ethic. We worked hard. I worked very hard all through college. And I loved everything I did. And I got, like I said, I got that influence from my parents who worked not to be rich, not to be famous. They worked to give us a good life. And that really stuck in with me. And I knew from an early age that if I wanted things, I had to work for them. They're not going to be given to me. And I will be the first person to tell you, I mean, this is great, you guys, because revisiting my career after all these years has just shown me that, yeah, I did a lot of work, but I look at it as being lucky. I was very lucky. Yeah, I auditioned and I, like I said, I worked hard, and my girlfriends and I from that time period, we always like to brag a little bit about how we were working actors. We weren't stars, we weren't whatever. We were working actors in a time when you could still be a working actor and make a decent living. So that's the work ethic, again, I bring to my students. And I'm very lucky to teach at two schools that believe in that same work ethic, that you show up on time, you have your work done, you don't make excuses, because nobody out in that business is going to take an excuse. They're going to be, giving and whatever, but if you keep giving excuses, if you're not prepared on a job, forget it. There are 12,000 people behind you just waiting for that job. So you learn a work ethic, and that's what we teach at both of the schools I teach at, is that professionalism.
Well, and a lot of the things it seems that I've seen that you've done kind of reflect that work ethic, but not just that, but the amount of effort required to be able to achieve success at what you're doing would be substantial. You were a director and company manager for a theater company, right? That's got to be just a ton of responsibility, instead of just having to show up and know your lines. I mean, being able to get everything together and not just have it fall apart.
Yeah, especially when you were, I was hired to direct a show. What is it called? How to Succeed in Business Without Ever Trying. And during the course of that, they fired the company director and they said, would you step in as interim, because we are $45,000 in debt. No media wants to, no advertising, nothing. No one wants anything to do with this. And this is in Champaign-Urbana, a small town. How do you get 45? Anyway, so I came on and freaked out when I heard they had no plan, they had no money, and they were in debt. And I got a hold of some friends of mine from my son's school who had just started a promotional company for smaller firms. And so I said, I'll buy you wine. Let's just pick your brain a little bit. And by the end of that meeting that night, they just came to me and said, we're going to help you and we're going to do it for free. And I went, oh my God. So that year and a half that I was company director, I had a lot of help. And we cut that debt in half. We repaired relationships. It was, now that I'm looking back on it, okay, and it's been a while, now that I'm looking back on it, it was quite the experience, and it taught me a ton about how to run a theater. The thing is that for the first 6 months, they offered me a tiny salary. And for the first 6 months or so, I said, I don't want it. We don't have the money. So I worked for free. And a lot of people didn't understand that. But Richard, there we go with that work ethic again, right? It's not like I was going to say, I want my money or I'm not going to help you. I saw people in need and who wanted to keep their company going. And so I helped. And they eventually did pay me what they owed me. So yeah, that was another lovely experience, but I met a lot of great people. So it was okay in the end.
It's just stories like that seem to be more commonplace than you would expect. Especially local theater seems to be a creature unto itself. It doesn't seem to conform to any other realities that I've seen.
It very much is. Yes, you're right.
How do you kind of, I guess you can't really compare theater to to being behind a camera for a movie, but what is some of the allure of both that you kind of like, I really love doing theater because of this, but I still like it better with film in some other respect?
As an actor, I did study theater all through college and have an undergrad degree in theater and all of that, and went to New York to study at an academy to do theater. But then I started doing the TV and the print work and the whatever, and I discovered that I'm a much better actor behind the camera, or in front of the camera, behind the camera. That's a someday dream. But yes, I am a much better actor in front of the camera than on stage. I was good in college. I did a play out here a few years ago. I belonged to the Road Theater Company out here in North Hollywood. And we did a play. It's the first play I'd done in a long time. And I just felt so uncomfortable. I didn't know I felt very exposed. You know, it was a great play and we had fun doing it, but I kind of pretty much determined after that, I'm a movie, film, TV actor. I love the intimacy of the camera. I love that I can raise an eyebrow to convey an emotion, and that's all I need to do. I love that. And when the camera is close, and it's such a relationship, it's hard to describe that feeling, but you feel so connected to the audience. And I know a lot of people say, well, the appeal, to answer your other question, the appeal of live theater, of course, is that you have a live audience and you are there as they're reacting and their energy feeds you. And it really is great. And a lot of people think that goes away when you're film acting. And I beg to differ, and I teach my students this. I say, through that lens could be upwards of hundreds of thousands of people who are going to eventually see your work. Now, do you want to disregard them and think that they're not there? Or do you want to use that imagination? You want to use that and sense their presence through the lens. And that's what the difference is. And I love that about film. So theater, I love to direct. I love to direct theater. I think that's where my forte is. But in film, it's the acting and it's the camera.
Now, is there a preference or noticeable difference or something that you enjoy one or the other when you look at TV compared to film? Like, do you have a preference between the two? Because you kind of did some, TV. That was where you were doing some of your early stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Do you prefer that or film?
Honestly, there's no difference because the television I did was filmed. It was movies of the week. It was recorded. It wasn't, I've never done a sitcom, which a couple of my friends did, and I would go and watch their episodes being filmed. Now that is a real combination of theater and, film. And I've never done that. So for me, doing a film or doing one of the television shows I did, there really was no difference because the process was the same. And the working and with the camera and everything was pretty much the same. So that wasn't a difference. And never having done a sitcom, I bet that, that's one experience I wish I had done. Yeah, I think that would have been cool, but I never got that chance, so.
Did you do any auditions for anything like that? And
Oh yeah. Go ahead, finish your question. I'm sorry.
no, that's what I was wondering. In your discussion about being a hardworking actor, is that you've got to put your face out there, and you've got to do auditions for things, and you've got to put your face in front of a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. Do you have a regret, or do you have gosh darn it, I wish I would have gotten that one that you had the opportunity to almost get?
Oh yeah, gosh, I got tons of those. You always audition and don't get more than you ever audition and do get. A couple of them that I'll remember was Top Gun. I went for the Kelly McGillis part. I think I got a callback for that. I think I got a couple of callbacks for that and then didn't go any further. There were a number of television shows. Oh, and that was the thing, is that you would audition and then you would get called back, and then you get called back again for some more people. And then if you really got close, you did something which they did back then called going to network, which meant it was down between you and maybe 2 or 3 other people. And everybody was there. All the studio executives are in this one little room. So you're auditioning, and I'll never forget this. Can't remember the name of the show, but it was a television show. It was a sitcom. And it was a tiny room in NBC Universal building. And there must have been 30 people in that room, and one little space in the middle of all of them for you to do your acting. But the people I was up against, which I love to tell this story. It's my best failure story ever. Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Courtney Cox were the other 2 young women up for the same part. They're both brunettes, and I'm blonde. So I always look back on that and go, well, if you're going to fail, geez, at least fail some really good people, and then you can feel justified, So, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus actually got that part for that show, which I can't remember, and that was the one right before she did Seinfeld. So. But yeah,
tell the story as if it were, I lost Julia Louis-Dreyfus for Seinfeld.
I'm putting my spin on it there, Ken. I'm putting my own spin on it,
Oh, well, you had a really remarkable start, though. Well, it's not really start, but maybe the start where people would become really aware of you. Back in the whole Ed McMahon days of Star Search, man. Now, for those of our younger listeners, Star Search was America's Got Talent back back in the day. So it was significantly different. I mean, but it had the same kind of core feel to it in a lot of ways. What was that kind of an experience like to be able to go into this competition and to win and you get all the way, I believe, to the semifinals, wasn't it?
Yeah, semifinals. Yeah.
What was, I mean, that kind of led to led to a lot of really neat stuff, I would expect.
Oh yeah, no, Star Search, I will always be grateful for Star Search. I was living in Chicago, being a model at the time, and the audition came to my agency in Chicago, and I auditioned for the spokesmodel category because I was a model in Chicago. You know, and I'm also 5'6" and, you know, no great shapes, you know, and there I am going into the spokesmodel competition, which was hysterical in itself. But so I won the audition, and we were flown to New York to shoot our 6 videos because they shot them all in advance in case you won, you know, then they could have them. And then drove out to LA, first time in LA, and did the show live. And there's another example of a live taping. So it was a competition show. We would rehearse all day, we would run the order, and then the audience would come in after dinner and we would tape the show live. And it was huge. It was a huge auditorium, lots of people. And lo and behold, yeah, I won 5 times. I won 5 times in the regular season, lost on my 6th, and made it to the semifinals. But again, here's the difference. No, I wasn't 6'2" and stacked and, you know, gorgeous like most of these women I went up against. I mean, it was hysterical. I mean, I'm here 5'6" and they're like 6 feet, and we're walking onto the stage like this. The camera had to pull back to get us both in the same shot. But where I think I won is not so much in the modeling, although I guess I was kind of cute. It was when they put the microphone in my hand and we had to do the teasers, the commercial teasers. Coming up next on Star Search 85. That's where my acting kicked in. And I knew what to do with the microphone. I knew how to handle it, and I knew how to shine with that microphone in my hand. And a lot of the young women I went up against did not. So I think that's why I won. And then after, it was my 6th show, the one I lost on, and I'm backstage, you know, not crying. I was happy that I had all this great run, but I'm, you know, feeling kind of blue or whatever. And all of a sudden I see this woman walking up to me, and she was one of the judges. She had been one of the judges on that show. And she hands me her card and she says, "Hi, my name is Sue Cameron. I'm an agent with Leading Artists and I'd like to represent you." And I went, okay. You know, no idea. So we met the next day, really good, strong agency. She was an amazing agent, met a lot of good people, and that's how I got my start. I just started auditioning with a very good agent. So I was, again, very lucky, that, you know, just very lucky, counting my stars there.
I remember that show quite well. In fact, it's very informative, even to what I'm doing right now. I'm doing my best to turn Richard Geiger into the next Ed McMahon, just so that he can, I want him to be able to say, "Yes, you're correct, sir." You know, just kind of get that gusto. So I haven't gotten there yet, but we're still working on it.
Are you going to be Johnny or?
Yeah, I don't think I can do a Johnny impersonation.
I think that'd be pretty cool. He's your Ed.
Who can really do Johnny? I think I'd have some fun with that, but. So, okay. So let's talk about what kind of came after that a little bit. You mentioned you weren't on sitcoms, but you did have recurring roles on a kind of close cousin to the sitcom, the soap opera. Mm-hmm. You were both on Days of Our Lives and Dallas, right? So yeah. I have heard some stories that the type of filming that these types of dramas tend to do is pretty grueling, because they're constantly having to turn over new material almost daily for that kind of story that they're telling. Mm-hmm. What was it like being a part of that kind of environment? Did it click for you, or was it always something else?
Well, there's quite a difference between Days of Our Lives, which was a daytime soap, and Dallas, which was a nighttime soap. because Dallas was shot like a regular television show. We had a week to shoot the whole episode, and it was filmed and all that. With Days of Our Lives, that was a whole other ball of wax. Days of Our Lives is your day starts at, mine always did, 6 a.m. You'd go to set for just a read through. You'd go back to your dressing room and sleep for an hour until you had camera blocking call, and then you do a camera block. And then you'd start getting your makeup on, and then you had lunch. And then during lunch, they would come, and those 30 pages you had memorized the night before, they would come and tell you, oh, we're cutting that speech, and we're moving it over here and taking out this page. And so then you do your first dress rehearsal where you're going, what am I supposed to say? I don't, freaking out. And then somehow we do final taping. Somehow it all works out. It's a real method and process. And don't ever let anybody tell you that daytime soap opera actors don't work hard. They do. It is very grueling. It's a grueling schedule, but it's like, once you get into the routine, you get it. And if you have a hot storyline, you're home memorizing, like I said, maybe 20 pages a night, maybe 30, I don't know, depending on how big your character is. But for me, I didn't like it. I didn't fit well. And the character I played was one that they were going to kill off anyway. So it wasn't like, I wasn't expecting to be on there all that long. But I got to play a great part. I got to play Britta Englund. She was a Russian spy that just comes and causes trouble in everybody's lives. So it was cool.
I will come to get you.
Mm-hmm. It was great. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in that show, but yeah, it was fun.
That's actually what I was going to ask was, did you know you weren't going to live, or did you get like, here's the script and you're reading it like, oh, this is where I get it right here? Is that kind of how it worked out?
Yeah, kind of. I don't think anybody knew where her storyline was going. It just, they knew they wanted to get this whole spy ring thing started. So they brought in this character and hooked me up with the bad girl and the bad boy on the soap. But here's where I knew I wasn't going to stay. It was after like 3 months or so, 3 months on the show. Storyline was going pretty well. It was very exciting. But then I get the script and I see they're introducing a new character, a new female character. And she has a past with my bad boy boyfriend. So I knew right then and there, she was a good girl. They're going to hook the good girl up with the bad guy, and the bad girl has to get shot off the show. So that's when I knew I wasn't sticking around very much longer. And that's fine. It's cool. I was not real good on the soap anyway, so I'm fine with that. And plus, I got off the show and got on to Bill and Ted, so I'm good.
I was going to say, hopefully that you had mentioned that you weren't exactly enjoying your time, so I was hoping that went into something that you actually enjoyed your time on.
Oh, heck yeah. That was Bill and Ted.
Yeah, well, we're going to save the best for last, but I want to kind of actually start with the first film I ever saw you in, and it's not worth landing on for a real long time just because it was such a small part that you had, and the film has maybe not aged the best. But you were talking a little bit about Julia Louis-Dreyfus here a little earlier, and she was in this film alongside several other individuals, and that was Soul Man back in the day. But I mean that cast was even though the movie may not have aged so well, the cast was phenomenal on that. Mm-hmm. Between C. Thomas Howell and Ray Don Chong had some great roles at that time. Of course, James Earl Jones and Leslie Nielsen are just legends. Mm-hmm. Did you get the chance to? And I know your part wasn't huge, but did you get the chance to kind of interact with any of them a little bit? Because I know it's fun to kind of get little tidbits of wisdom from other actors, little bits of how do you do this, and kind of learn. Did you get anything good out of that?
Yes, actually, I was in bed with 2 men on my one day of shooting. So yeah, yeah, that was the credit that my father absolutely hated and was very mad about. My credit on that film was Girl in Bed. And for me, it was, I'm pretty sure it was my first feature film I worked on. I was hired first day of shooting, so it was exciting. There were balloons arriving to set for Ari and for C. Thomas Howell, and so my scene was being in bed with C. Thomas Howell, and then Ari Gross, whom I love, comes running in, and they're all excited. They're accepted to Harvard, and they're bouncing around, and I pop up from under the sheets and go, "Congratulations!" And that was it. So it was cute. It was a cute scene. And the two guys were just so fun to work with because they were so excited. It was a thrilling first job for me. And yeah, so it's a special place in my heart, that little film. And yeah, I don't care that it doesn't age well. I had fun.
Yeah.
And have a great credit. I brag about that, girl in bed,
Well, you can always take some positive out of some stuff like that. I mean, that's just kind of amazing. Now, truthfully, the actual, because I didn't recognize it at the time when I saw it, but now the first movie that I actually remember recognizing you from, and it was actually one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, was actually Summer School, with the late great Carl Reiner. It was your part at the beginning of the movie. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was such an important tone setter for the entire film, to be able to be likable while accidentally or intentionally putting the protagonist in the position that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like working on that particular film?
Yes, boy, Summer School, another really cool experience. Not only working with Mark Harmon, and that was his first comedy, and he was very nervous about it. And again, had a great dog, Bo. Never forget that dog. Got to put the lei around the dog's neck. Oh, such a sweetheart of that dog. But again, I look back on this stuff, and I look back on some of the people I've worked with and go, how did I ever work with these people without falling all over them and saying how much I love you so much, right? Or not being too nervous to do anything. And that was with Carl Reiner. I grew up in the early 60s. Dick Van Dyke Show was one of my favorite shows ever. And, he was Alan Brady and a comic genius. And not only, I got to audition for him and got called back by him, and then got the part from him. And so that was that. And then we were working on the scene out in the parking lot. And like I said, I think Mark was a little nervous about doing a comedy, and Carl knew that. And so he was just right there, now tweak this and do this and that, so excited to help him. So much so that he didn't even, when he gave a direction, and here we are in the middle of the parking lot, he didn't want to run back behind the camera. He just dove into the bushes right by us, so that if he had to yell cut or he saw something, he could be that close, and then come right back out and give him another direction and then jump back into the bushes. And I just went, wow, what a great way to direct a scene. So yeah, no, and people ask me, did you get a picture with him? Did you? No, that's not what we did. We just worked together. And for me, that's enough. I was directed by Carl Reiner. For me, that was amazing. Just an amazing experience.
Now, did you, maybe besides Carl Reiner, did you have growing up or coming up in the industry any, I don't know if you call them idols, but people that you looked up to or people that you aspired to kind of emulate?
Gosh, as an actor, not too much. A lot of people ask me that question. I guess I was a huge, and still am, a huge fan of Katharine Hepburn, simply because her comic timing is gorgeous, and she's so smart, and she's just so witty, and there's nothing false about that woman at all. I love her acting. So I guess she would be definitely a role model. Marilyn Monroe. Thought she was a really good actor, folks, and tragic, yes, but she also had great comic timing and did some things in her films that you just watch her not only because she was gorgeous, but you watch what she's doing without saying any words, and she's wonderful. And of course, I just loved the whole business and actors and the whole 9 yards. And when I got older and I got here and wanted to study, Jose Quintero was offering workshops for actors, and Jose Quintero was, and at that time, still a huge Broadway director, and started Circle in the Square back in the 50s, and with Ted Mann, and he's the one who reintroduced Eugene O'Neill into the American canon, and his directing and the way he worked with us. I still hear his gorgeous voice, even though he had throat surgery many years later, and he had one of those boxes. You could still hear that gorgeous voice. But I guess out of all those people, it was just their love of the craft and their love of what they did just shone through. It's not like they were, like I said, they weren't fame seekers. They weren't, I don't know, maybe they were, I don't know them personally. But with Jose especially, you could just tell he just loved actors. He loved working with them. And when you got something, he was the most excited of anybody. And it's that kind of enthusiasm that really makes you and inspires you to work.
Is it that kind of impact on not just the industry, but the people that are closest to the individual creating the work that kind of inspired you to work on the book about Herbert Blau?
Yes, actually. Yeah. Boy, Herb. I think my dissertation killed him, actually. Anyway, sorry, that's another long story. But during my MA program, I took a theory class, and we were handed a list of theorists, and I just went, oh, gee, I don't know any of them. I'll pick him. And so I picked Herbert Blau, and lo and behold, couldn't have picked anybody better. He, with Jules Irving, started the Actors Workshop in San Francisco. And their main goal when they started was the love of the craft, to explore the craft. And that's why it's Actors, singular, workshop, is explore the art, explore the craft. And so studying his career and the way he wrote about it, to read his writings, The Impossible Theater, I would recommend that book to anybody, by the way. The Impossible Theater is a great chronicle of where he felt theater was in the early 60s at that time. And I think a lot of people would agree that it's still like that. But even though you can just hear his rage against the theater machine in all of his writings, you can also hear how much he loved it and wanted to understand it, but never could and never did. And that's not a bad thing against him. Nobody understands, what the frick is theater? You don't understand it. It's an entity. You just don't get it ever. No one's ever going to get it. Even the successful people, there will still always be this enigma about it that you don't understand. And that's why it's so special. And that's why theater, live theater, will most likely be around until the end of civilization. We will never get rid of that live experience. I don't care how many new media things come up. Theater has never gone away. And it won't.
Don't think Quibi's going to replace it?
Oh, God, no. I love Quibi, though. What a great idea. I really think it's a great idea. I honestly do. Short little one-offs, 7-minute episodes. I think it's a lot of fun. I'd love to do one. I think it'd be cool. So no, I'm not poo-pooing anything. But all I'm saying is that people ever since the invention of radio back in the 20s, or phonographs back in the early 1900s, people have been touting the death of live theater. No, it's not going anywhere. Never will.
No, definitely not.
Mm-mm.
I think timing kind of killed Quibi. Killed Quibi. So.
Well, yeah. Boy, the pandemic's killing just about everything right now, and it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult for everyone, and I get that. So but here's the thing I'm telling my students too, folks, is that's why, again, I think we are so craving human interaction right now. I think you're going to see a surge of live theater once we're all out of this again. We want that interaction. And I think this pandemic is teaching us all that we need that human interaction, that live human interaction. So not going to replace everything else, but we still need that.
And that brings up a good question then too. if you're going to be doing an instruction for school, how is that going to change here for you personally coming up soon?
Well, we've been on Zoom since the middle of spring semester, and boy, when you I was teaching at four different schools this spring semester. One school, Concord University in West Virginia, I teach online anyway, so it didn't bother me. But here at AMDA and NIFA and at LMU, all of a sudden, boom, we're on Zoom, and nobody even knew. I had never even heard of Zoom before that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden now I'm trying to figure out and teach people and keep it. Yeah, boy, talk about a stressful semester. The thing that I'm noticing now that horrific semester is over, we are back online this summer for NIFA and for AMDA. We are going to be online again, which of course is the smart thing to do. And what I'm noticing is my students are losing their energy. They're losing their desire to, especially for performing students, they have to be together to do scene work. It's just, scene work on Zoom is brutal. Let's face it, it's just brutal. For most of the courses I teach history courses, and I teach a critical writing course for MFA actors, which is going really well on Zoom right now. And for me, what I've learned is no matter how depressed I feel, because hello folks, teachers get massively depressed with all of this too, by the way. It's not just all about the students, because you've got a teacher who then has to forget all the crying and jump on Zoom and be a cheerleader for students and get them through the class.
Yep.
But here's what's got to happen. A lot of schools are going back online. USC just announced they're going back online. They thought they were going to open, they're not. Students who are listening, who may be listening, look guys, this is your degree. Whether there's a pandemic or not, this is still your degree. Work on it, get it done, get it over, and get out there into the real world, okay? I don't know what's gonna be waiting for you out there after this is all done, but why sit around and mope? If this is what you have as a way to finish your degree, then do it the best you can, and get your degree and graduate, because this isn't going away anytime soon. So you can sit home and mope and not get anywhere, or if you're able financially and all that other stuff to still attend and it's still on Zoom, do it and get it done, and it's still your work and it still has to be good. Bottom line.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't want to put this off any longer. There's something I know that listeners have been waiting for. We've been.
Oh, I think I told you everything I've ever done. No.
Well,
oh no, I bet this is going to be real important.
It is definitely going to be important. Richard knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
It's a reminder that the Pudding Guys are on social media. You can always check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Pudding Guys, and on Twitter at Real Pudding Guys. And of course, even you can go over to Patreon and check us out for only $1 a month. You can help support the Pudding Guys as we bring you new people to talk to, new things to talk into, and just generally increase the quality of the programming. And by the way, we do have some neat stuff coming up in August that's going to be a little different. We have some very cool tools, but we're not going to go into that now. That's going to be its own episode.
I'll follow you on Twitter just to find out what those are.
Woohoo!
There you go.
All right, now what we were really talking about is obviously the new Bill and Ted movie that's coming out has got a lot of people excited, specifically a lot of people my age, I think, truthfully, that when we were growing up, those movies were really something that brightened our experiences. How exactly, you kind of touched on a little bit. You were in the daytime drama, and then kind of went to Bill and Ted's. I thought I had heard at some point that you had gotten called back a number of times to
Yes.
be in that particular part. How did that work out?
Yeah, I think the total number was 6 times to go back and do the same audition scene with a different set of young women waiting in the waiting room. From what I understand, and I didn't know this until a couple of years ago when I did they were screening the 2 movies in Santa Monica, and Alex was there and the 2 princesses and Scott. And I just jumped on stage. I surprised everybody. But I guess Alex and Keanu went through the same thing, only their audition process, I think he said, lasted like 6 months or something.
Wow.
They kept going back and forth and pulling in with different people. And for me, for that little Missy part, yeah, I was called back a lot. And like I said, each time with a different set of young women. So, and it was the same scene. It was the watering scene, you know, where she's out and the phone booth drops behind her and here come all these crazy figures and she's just meeting them all like, hi, you know, there's no big deal. So, and there's not a lot of dialogue in that scene at all for me. It's a lot of looks and it's a lot of reactions and it's a lot of things the actor chooses to do. And I still, to this day, I don't know for sure, but I think that's why I got the part. Because every time I went back, I tried to do something just a little different or add a little something, or the whole Missy mom thing with the look started in that audition, I think. Ed and Chris wrote it, and I think I just interpreted, you know, the Missy mom. So the look came in between those 2 lines. And it's not because, God help us, I was not buxom, let's put it that way. I did not have the boobs for the job. Sorry, folks, I just didn't. But I think, like I said, they kept calling me back because there was something they liked about me. And I think, number 1, it was because I made them laugh every time. And number 2, I have never thought of Missy as a dumb blonde. I don't play dumb blondes. I play a character, and I loved her from the beginning. Just the thought of a 19-year-old stepmother who's out there watering her lawn, and here comes Bob Genghis Khan out of a phone booth. And she's just like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. That's just, I mean, that's the brilliance of the writing too, folks, okay? Actors love really good writing, and Ed and Chris, the subtlety sometimes of their comedy is just so understated that you can just do whatever you want with it and it just comes out funny. So yeah, that was my experience with auditioning for that. And then I got the part.
And as you were filming this and creating this, did you folks ever imagine that there would be a sequel? And then after that, a threequel,
No.
how many years later?
Heavens, no. We were filming it. We were all pretty much nobodies except for obviously the stars of the film and George Carlin, of course. But any actor at that time, you knew that there was a good chance whatever you were filming was not ever going to see the light of day. Commercial actors know that all the time, you know. And with Bill and Ted's, did I think it wasn't ever going to come out? No, we were all hoping, but then the whole bankruptcy thing and the production company, and it just sat in a vault for 2 years uncut until all the court and all the legal things were situated. And then Nelson Entertainment picked it up and Orion Pictures came on board and they cut it together, and it was their best grossing film that year, I think, from what I understand. And then after that, you always hope for a sequel, sure. And then pretty much, I was still shocked when I got the call. No idea. Still really shocked that we were doing Bogus Journey. Shocked even more that I was actually in it again. Never thought that would happen, which was so cool. And then the third one, wow. Yeah, boy, to revisit that character and those characters 30 some odd years later was very interesting to do. But I've been hearing about a sequel for maybe 6 or 7 years, just off and on, little rumors and things. And
yeah.
Then a few years ago, I did Comic-Con for Boom Studios to sign their Bill and Ted comic books. And Scott Kroof was there. And he said, well, we have a script. And he said, you're in it. And I went, I had no idea. I said, I can't believe you keep asking me back. I'm so happy. So yeah, I kind of went through the roof when I found out I was in it for the 3rd time. So,
well, you touched on something there that I kind of wanted to ask. George Carlin was such a big part of the charm of the first 2 films. Now, I know you can't give away any details. had to have weighed a little bit on the writing of the third film. How do you compensate? What do you think that was ever really an issue, or it was just kind of we'll find something to fill his shoes?
I honestly can't answer that, and not because of the NDA, but because I'm not the writers, and I don't know what was going through their minds with all of that. I will say one thing about George Carlin. He was one of my favorite comedians. His 7 words you can't say on TV, that just the list just kept growing. And then his baseball and his football. Have you ever heard that one? Oh my God, love it. Was so disappointed during the filming of the first one that we never had scenes together, and I never met him. Never met him on that one or on Bogus Journey. And I was just like, oh my God. So that's a heartbreak that I never got to meet him, but got to say I was in a film with him, 2 of them actually. So,
That is true. To do some creative editing, just to kind of have it spliced together. Well, going from kind of the sad to the less sad, one of the reasons that the movies kind of resonated with me so much is they had such a positive message. Ultimately, they were very optimistic in a lot of regards. Now, I've seen the previews for the new film, and it's hard to gauge with just the little snippet. Does this film kind of maintain that optimistic worldview?
Again, I cannot answer that.
Nah, I was trying to weasel just a little bit, couldn't quite get there.
However, I will comment, because you brought it up. When we were filming the first one, I don't think anybody knew at that time that Bill and Ted Speak would become a thing. And you're right. And I've heard Ed talk about this before, especially on Twitter. I love Ed on Twitter. He's great. But he just is adamant, as adamant as I keep saying, Missy is not a dumb blonde. The 2 guys are not potheads or surfer dudes or they're not anything. And that's why I think a lot of people couldn't figure out what they were. They couldn't put them into a category because they aren't. They kind of created a category of their own. So that's what I love about especially the first one, that just love of, and the innocence and the pure honesty of all of it.
Yeah.
So I've got to say, George Carlin, the best Mr. Conductor, if anybody knows what I'm talking about there.
Yes.
But and this may sound like an awkward question, but every actor, one of the best things, if you have a piece of work that lives on, as an actor, actress, you get residuals from these things. Do you, now that there is another one coming out, do you see an increase in the popularity, an increase in everything from the first 2? Now that the third one has a trailer out for it, there's word of mouth for it. Are the first 2, are those coming back to light in from what you can see, whether it's from the money or whether it's from just communication about the first 2?
I think so. What surprises me after all these years, and honestly, I never really thought about it with the first 2. I knew we had fans of the film, which was so wonderful. But then I kind of took myself out of the business for 10 years in Illinois, remember that. And coming back, and now with all the rumors, and then finally with shooting the film, and now being a part of social media, I'm hearing from all these people, kind of like you guys, that said these movies just meant so much to us, and we love them. And I'm like, wow, really? I'm shocked. I'm really surprised that, and I think that speaks so well of the first little film, is that the fan base is so amazing. I mean, everybody, you guys, everyone out there, you fans are amazing. And I know Alex likes to say this, but you guys are really the ones who kept pushing to get this third one done. And so kudos to all of you. That's what I think helps make it feel more like a community of people, and not just actors and fans in a movie. We're a true community. And you all should feel a part of the success in the making of this third one, because you had a big hand in it. And am I seeing an upsurge of people watching the films? Yeah, definitely. In preparation of the third one, they want to either remember the first two, or some people have never seen them, which is great. So introducing a whole new generation. And yeah, the comments are like, and you can post pictures. I even watched them again after all these years, and I went, wow, I really like this film. So yeah, we're seeing an upsurge, and I guess the pandemic kind of helped with that, because everybody's watching their favorite comfort movies again. I know I am. So I think so, a build up to the third one. And anybody out there who has not seen the original Excellent Adventure or Bogus Journey, get on it. What are you waiting for? What's wrong with you? Come on. This is Missy Mom talking, so
those are classics. I mean, they're, if it doesn't put a smile on your face, I would almost argue that there may be something wrong.
Well, I mean, we're not, I understand, we're not for everybody, but if you like just fun, honest comedy, I think you'll love these films. So really, get on board.
So have you also begun the binging process in watching everything else now that COVID is out here, your own personal favorites of things?
Oh, yes. I think I've been through the Harry Potter series at least twice, reworked all of the Star Wars, even the ones I don't like. Let's see. James Bond films, I got all those. Yeah, I've been watching those. So yeah, I'm a big, huge film person, and I do have my favorites. I have my comfort movies that I don't mind watching over and over and over again. So
yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons that we do this, is film, television, this pop culture plays such a significant, it has an impact on so many people. I mean, I can't say everybody. I mean, there's going to be those people that would prefer to be out in their wood shop making something.
Sure.
But for a lot of people, this is kind of that connection to the larger social structure. And it gives us information on how we see each other. And it's just such a fantastic thing. And I cannot tell you how much fun it is hearing opinions from somebody that helps to create those things. And we always really appreciate everybody that the work that you've done and that everybody does to help, like I said, put some smiles on some faces.
Well, that's worth it right there. If I can do that, then I'm happy.
Before we kind of bring this to a close, I always like to offer, is there anything else that you kind of want to give a shout out to, or that's really something that's important to you, whether it's a project or a charity or whatever that might be something near and dear to your heart?
Well, I really, honestly, I want to thank you for starting off this whole thing with talking about my work and my education and my teaching. I think of anything, being allowed to talk about teaching and why you get a degree and why it's important, and the energy of your students and what you can learn from your students and what I've learned from them. And I mean, I think that's what we all need right now, is to hear that message, is that we can't ever stop learning from each other, because as we're all seeing, there's a lot of hatred right now being spewed. And let's just hope that this is the last of it and it's finally coming out and purging itself. But we just have to keep trying and keep moving forward. And if laughter does it, great. I'm glad to be a part of that. I'm just trying to work and do what I can and do who I am. So being a doctor and having the degree and being a teacher is as much a part of me now as being an actor. So thank you for asking me questions about that, because I appreciate that. Other than that, I could talk about my own career forever. I used to call them my Johnny Carson stories. I need to write a book. There's so many things that have happened, but it's interesting. I think the last thing for the fans is, please understand that you know, the third movie was shot 32 years later, and things change, especially for a woman. So let's just be forgiving out there, shall we? But other than that, just go and enjoy and have a good time. And, you know, just take care, everybody. Just be careful and take care.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I really appreciate it. It has been lovely. I hope you've had as much fun as I have.
I have. Thank you.
Any last words, Mr. Geiger?
Favorite James Bond.
Whoa, pick one. Oh boy. Okay, this is good. I've thought about this. I'm going to say, it's a toss-up, but I'm going to say You Only Live Twice. Because that young woman in that white bikini and her white flats running up and down that volcano about 7 or 8 times, swimming across the lake, gotta love that. So I think it's You Only Live Twice.
Fantastic.
Good choices.
Yeah, definitely so.
And then second one's Goldfinger.
Oh, yeah.
From
It's
Russia.
hard not to love that one. They're all so good.
Classic. Yeah.
I love the classic ones. Yes. All right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.